Yeah, exactly.
Some chicken farmer.
All right. Let me see here. Fix the volume almost. All right, this is episode 11 of Sucio Talk, and I'm joined with my boy Jeff. Say your last name.
Stewart.
There you go, Jeff Stewart. He used to farm for Tallulah on Thames that I worked with when I worked with Jake Rojas over here in Newport, Rhode Island. So after a short plane ride, about 6 hours, and a nice quarantine and a negative COVID test, here I am today. We're outside in the frosty nor'easter that just happened a couple days ago.
Yeah, we're waiting for another one. It's supposed to snow and rain today.
Yeah, I know, yeah. We'll see what happens. So, Jeff, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Nice to have you on. Thanks for the greenery.
You're very welcome.
It's beautiful.
We try to grow as many things as we can in-house.
For sure.
And given the change of the world with, a lot of the pandemic stuff,
yeah,
a lot of the focus shifted from kind of restaurant selling, not that that still isn't important, but,
yeah,
more trying to grow food, quote unquote,
yeah,
and grow stuff that we can eat. And so it's been a change, and the focus is, really just growing the best stuff we can grow, but, trying to shift some of the audience and some of the clientele that, currently are either not buying stuff or just having their own challenges. So.
For sure, for sure. So, before we get into COVID, Sucio Talk, we take it all the way back. We're going to start from when you were a little kid,
yep.
Where you grew up, and what'd your parents do for a living?
Well, I was born in 1957.
All right.
In November, and I'm 63 now, so I was born in Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Woonsocket, Rhode Island. All right.
And my father worked for a company in Woonsocket that was a plastics manufacturing company called Cumberland Engineering.
Yeah.
And he was a traveling salesperson, and was on the road pretty much 6 days a week. And I was born a twin brother to my brother Joe, who is 5 minutes younger than me.
Whoa.
And we were fraternal twins.
Okay.
And I have a sister that's 5 years older than me that lives here in Middletown, and I have my farm on her property.
Okay.
She has 16 acres in Middletown.
All right. And then you're farming the 16 acres or the the whole?
I have about an acre.
Okay.
Carved out of the field that is mostly raised beds, hoop houses, and kind of high productivity regenerative farming. We're trying to, the kind of thing has evolved into a no-till, where we're trying just to work on soil biology, but it's a lot of raised beds with fairly high performance soils and compost.
Yeah.
But it's fairly small in terms of size, but in terms of, one person, at this point it's me.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do, and so, I'm trying to pick crops that are more...
You've always had an issue with getting good staff.
Yeah, and like everyone, it kind of is like the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
It's just, it isn't even the question of getting them.
Yeah.
It's a question of finding people that care.
That want to stay.
That
care. Want to do the work.
That care.
Yeah.
I mean, that have a passion for it and care. I mean, they give they really care about the quality, and they really care about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And those people are few and far between. And it's kind of like, again, a restaurant in a kitchen. I mean, unless you're really driven to be in that environment and are excited and driven to some career, it's just a job.
Okay.
And I don't need anybody there just to do a job. And I'm more than happy to pay a fair wage. I mean, I pay more than anybody else would pay for that job. But I just, I have had people. I've had people through the years. But, at this point, it's pretty much given the thin margins.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to pay somebody $15 an hour and grow stuff that's, $3 a pound.
Yeah.
It's just, the math is not there. But I've gotten pretty good at being able to develop a lot of things that are pretty productive.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can get into the, where I am today versus where I'm going. But, the bottom line is I was born in Rhode Island, and...
now you're back.
Never thought I'd be back.
Okay.
And there was a long road of, a million miles between that.
Oh, for sure.
But I left here.
How old were you?
We moved back and forth between New Jersey and Rhode Island, where my father was being transferred probably 6 or 7, 8 times.
Okay.
So we never were in one place more than 2 years.
All right.
So we were a lot of moving around between high schools, between elementary schools. Again, I had a twin brother, so we, had some people we knew, but we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And
did you have any interest at the time in farming at all, or
no.
what were you into then? High school?
Well, again, as I was growing up, I was a teenager, or even younger than teenager. I was, kind of the classic rebel without a cause. I had hair down below my shoulders, and I was into music.
Yeah.
Playing music, and in a band. And
what was the band called?
Oh, I had a bunch of bands. But back then, it was more just screwing around.
Yeah.
And playing music with friends and getting high and partying. And, it was pretty much one of those people that they referred to as, what are they?
A delinquent.
Heads, like potheads.
There you go.
I was smoking weed from when I was 15.
Yeah.
And playing music and into
Now, how did you get your first your hands on your first bit of marijuana? Like, how was that like? When you were 15, how did that come about?
I knew, like a lot of older people.
Yeah,
and they were either people that were selling it, or they were brothers or sisters of people I hung out with. So it was relatively easy.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty much, as we all know in America, like it or not, that. To get weed has been ubiquitous forever.
Yeah.
People pretend like, you grow up in America, it's part of your growing up.
It's part of the culture, yeah.
Well, it's everywhere. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And then, the availability of it back then was a lot different. And then I spent a lot of time in that world in a deep, dark, not dark, but nothing to be ashamed of. But, I spent a lot of time around people that were into that and into doing nefarious things around that.
Okay.
And
so when did you leave the Northeast?
Well, I kind of went to New Jersey and Rhode Island back and forth, and wound up graduating high school in Barrington, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And between Tinton Falls, New Jersey, and Barrington, Rhode Island, you kind of came out of high school, and then went to New Jersey and wound up going to Stockton State College down in South Jersey to study business and political science.
Yeah.
And went down there, but still, very much kind of into music, and started a bunch of more, music and nefarious activities in college, and wound up hooking up with a bunch of people with some good musicians and a good band, and had some pretty successful bands down there. And those bands were,
what kind of music we talking? Rock and roll?
No, basically rhythm and blues, rock and roll. But I was a lead singer, harmonica player, percussionist. Yeah. I was the front man of this band, and nobody knows this shit. This is all kind of back in the day. People always think, really? Because really. But we had a really successful band down in South Jersey. It was about 6, 7 pieces. Did a lot of Grateful Dead and like Santana and all kinds of Allman Brothers and all kinds of blues, Muddy Waters, all that kind of stuff. And had a successful thing doing that. And at the same time hooked up with a bunch of dudes that were, kind of in the wholesale weed business.
Okay.
And wound up, kind of getting a lot of money to fund the musical pursuits and buy all the equipment in a van and kind of fund all the shit that it takes to do that, and put a band on the road basically through that endeavor.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's outside Atlantic City, New Jersey. So at the same time, the casinos were starting to come to fruition, and shit was happening. So there was a lot of activity with that. And I went and worked with some pretty serious dudes that were, again, a lot older than me.
Yeah.
That ran a huge amount of things through all kinds of wacky. The guy owned a huge used rent-a-car company.
Yeah.
It's a famous company. I won't say the name. And he used that as a cover, basically, to move large amounts of product from basically Florida up to the Northeast.
Where was Florida getting it from?
we were flying it in from other, Jamaica,
Yeah.
from other islands, from Colombia, from.
I've always been very fascinated with that because you hear the stories, you watch the documentaries, but like, how does that all actually work? Like,
Yeah, it was, it was driven by a lot of. These were independents that I worked for, but had connected up to a lot of organizations that were, kind of in the business of the logistics. And a lot of the people who were on this, call it team, were ex-Navy and Air Force and flew planes, a couple feet above the ground in a swamp down in Florida and drop shit, and we'd, go pick it up in the. And then, what was the lowest kind of job on the totem pole was the runner.
Yeah.
And those are the people that drove these rent-a-cars.
Yeah.
That turned out had no registration, no insurance, or just
they were just
filled with weed.
Yeah.
And then somebody would drive behind you. So
make sure you didn't get tailed.
Well, no, if you did get pulled over, their job would be to basically ram the police car and you take off. So you didn't really want to get to that scenario, but it was basically a way to provide some backup.
Yeah.
Somebody kind of. But these cars were loaded with, huge amounts of weed. And
what amount in weight, you think?
It depended. If the car was big enough and a big trunk, I was a runner at that time, so I was the lowest man on the thing. And at that time, it was $10 a pound to run it up from Florida to basically the Poconos.
So as the risk came up, you got paid for it.
All they got paid in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, when it got delivered, but it was usually between 300 and 400 or 500 pounds.
Okay.
I mean, it was serious weight. And in those days, we're talking a pretty long time ago.
So the car looks sort of ridiculous. What kind of cars were these? Because you can't put that in a Toyota.
Not Toyotas, but these were like big Cadillacs.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. All right, that's
huge trunks.
I'm like,
the preferred car was the bigger the trunk.
Yeah,
Cutlass
for sure.
Supreme, or.
And were you trying to cover this weed up at all? Like put clothes over it, or was it just like? You opened the trunk and if you got pulled over, you
done.
were
I mean, there was no. You could smell it. It was, this was a suicide mission.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the time, and there were lots of people aware of this activity in terms of the state troopers through Pennsylvania and through all these places have, this is a long standing route.
Yeah.
It's like the silk trade, you know what I mean? People come up from Florida and come up 95.
Yeah.
And then the job was to take it up into the Poconos. And in the backwoods, deep dark, and some road is meet this guy who would back up and switcheroo the weed out of the trunk into his trunk.
Yeah.
And that would be the end of the mission.
Now you're telling me like this is pre-GPS times. I can't even
this
get
is back
somewhere without fucking.
man, this is
now
back.
Tell me, like on those drives, there's got to be a time where you got lost. And you're like,
well, you're on 95. You're a straight line.
It's 95.
Yeah,
all
you're
day.
getting 95.
Your truck stops and shit.
Yeah, there's no stopping. There's no rest. There's no sleeping. There's,
Okay,
these
I see you.
These are fucking missions. These are like.
I thought you were like meeting them in the woods or something.
Yeah, no, but on the road, then we would know off exit whatever.
Yeah.
Make a right, take left. I mean,
okay, got you.
We all survived back in the day without all that shit.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It was great.
We're all a bunch of bitches now.
No, it was nice. Things were different. But anyway, we'd meet, we'd do the switch thing, and then I'd get $10. And so, over a 24-hour period, it took about 24 hours to go down there. Drive
Yeah.
You'd make $10 a pound. You'd make $3, $4, $5
Yeah.
In 24 hours.
So were you doing that on a full-time basis? Even if you had enough money to kind of cover what you were doing?
Well, I had other activities related to that job.
Yeah.
Which had to do with more of the wholesale distribution. So, I had other activities that were related. And the guy I worked for, who was the kind of the head of it, was like, you need to decide between music or this, because you need to put more time into this. And I was like, look, I'm doing this to fund the music. And the music was, an important part of what I did.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was in college, but I had a lot of money back then. I made probably more money than I've ever made back in those times. I had a huge Cadillac. I had all kinds of ridiculous toys and, lots of money, and most of it we blew and partied. These guys were all ex-Marines.
Yeah.
All wacky dudes, crazy mothers.
Yeah.
And we partied our ass off. I mean, if I made $5,000, I'd spent $6,000. You know what I mean? And we're talking back in the day. This was like huge amounts of coke, huge amounts of like freebase. I mean, this guy had a mansion, and we would hang out in that mansion and just go nuts.
Just get at it.
And,
they call that a trap house now.
Yeah, no, it was crazy shit, man.
Yeah.
It was crazy. He must have paid every cop this was on a little town in an island.
Yeah. So you
in
knew
New
that,
Jersey.
he's got to be